Cricket et al. It's a website, it's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
Peter Lawler over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast, coming to you live, independently from Melbourne in my case and Adelaide in Pete's case. I can see Adelaide in the background, Pete. Tell us all about it. Tell us what you're not looking at.
You can see Adelaide Oval in the background. I've grabbed myself a Cricket et al. Suite for the day, Gideon. It's one of the corporate suites. It's actually Channel 7's corporate suite, but anyway. Yeah, well, yes, they're doing this. You can probably hear in the background, they're doing the sound checks for the ceremonies tomorrow.
Okay.
What's an international test without ceremonies in the morning, Gideon? So,
what's in store for us, Pete? Can you give us a heads up?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what, that on the playlist, Gideon, is the Australian national anthem, the Indian national anthem. They've just played Hunters and Collectors, Do You See What I See twice. And what's this playing now? Hang on a second.
Great Southern Land?
Yeah, they played that before every test for about 15 years, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I got this earwig about that. I used to sing James Sutherland.
I know, Pete. I was sitting next to you.
Used to drive myself mad. I've never been able to sing that song again. It wasn't exactly the finest word.
Well, it was good for over days.
Bit more of a fan of the Flowers than that first album we've discussed.
Great record.
Anyway, you're right. I flew into Adelaide yesterday just to prepare the town for your arrival, Gideon.
You plumped my pillow?
Yes, there'll be rose petals along the path from the airport to Aquinas College, which you can probably see in the background if you've got.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I use my imagination, but I can see it in my mind's eye.
I can see it. I can see the red roofs and things.
Can you see Colonel Light's statue? That's usually a good indicator.
No, I can't see him. The trees are blocking him from there. But yes, I'm in that same room that I'm in almost every year. In usual fashion, I arrived a day early, expecting accommodation. Steph didn't blink. She just, we can sort that. Yep, we'll work it out. Peter.
Solid gold.
And I've got a luxurious single bed en suite. What more do I need?
Yeah.
What more do I need?
Muesli. Do I need to bring muesli?
Well, I've got the coffee, and I'm going to try and not leave it in the back of a cab. That was an expensive mistake. Those AeroPresses are really expensive now. But anyway, and I've just been checking that everything's in place. I went to Peter Rabbit Cafe this morning because I know that you want to go there, and I just want to make sure that the food's up to standard and the coffee's going really well.
Yeah, I've made my booking.
Dan will be waiting for us, the same guy who's already there.
Yeah.
I love a place that has the same hospitality staff.
I think I spoke to him this morning, actually, when I was making my booking.
Did you book, did you?
I did.
Yeah. We may mention the cricket at some point in this podcast. Marn was there. Marn came in alone.
Oh, yeah.
Jumped into Marnus Labuschagne, of course, I'm talking about. And he jumped into a far corner in the shaded garden because it was already stinking hot at about 8:30. God, it's hot in Adelaide, Gideon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bring your summer frocks, mate.
Yeah.
I've made a mistake. I've got bloody black clothes and skinny jeans on and I'm squelching. Sorry for that description.
Do you remember the cafe we used to go to, we went to in Leeds in 2019?
Yes.
Which was patronised by the Australian team. But Marnus used to turn up an hour before everybody.
Yeah.
He just couldn't help himself. He had to be there in advance of everybody else.
I didn't go and chat to him. I said hello. And that cafe was called Lanes, by the way. I think it was the apostrophe S. I think Marnus likes that reflective time.
Yeah.
He gets out there and he kind of huddles down, and I've noted that. And I think it's good. He probably needs some sort of reflective time. He's a high energy guy. Yeah. As we speak, he's out in the nets, middling everything. He baffled the house pound.
Of course.
Baraf, the Marnus whisperer, tells me he's clicked. He's in a good place. Barat is backing him for runs in this test. And he is a chance to make runs because his name is in the side, in the 11. There was some talk that in the sort of hysteria that surrounded the first and second innings in Perth, that maybe he needed a break from cricket, and maybe he still does, but he's survived. There's one change, Gideon.
Tell me.
Josh Hazelwood is out. Scott Boland is in. Scott Boland, who we last saw at Leeds, actually.
Indeed, yeah.
That's right. Remember his parents were there from
I know.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah, we met. I ran into them.
Okay.
So that's a minor change. Pat Cummins did the press conference about an hour ago, so I attended that.
Yep.
Well-attended press conference. The Indians are doing their press conference at about 5:30. They had a bit of a shock when they showed up to their first training session here, and the Adelaide Oval had thrown the doors open, and it was like the friggin' Beatles at Southern Cross Hotel, mate. You were there, weren't you, Gideon? You get this sinking suspicion that all my cultural references are really old.
And the strange thing is that I understand them all, Pete.
Yeah, that's right. But because there's those walkways and balconies that overlook the nets at the back of the members.
Yeah.
Jam packed with Indian fans and all behind, and in that sort of section behind the nets there where people can get, they're all in there. And apparently it's quite distracting because they're asking for selfies and offering suggestions and turning around. So India have reverted to the closed net sessions for the rest of the tour. They've sent out a directive. I kind of get that. Yeah. I mean, it's lovely. It's very nice for the fans to be able to show up, but it can get a little overwhelming.
I think it's kind of interesting that people did turn up, because I think the assumption of most people would have been that the sessions would have been closed. So they just turned up on spec, and to their amazement, they've been allowed into the inner sanctum.
Yeah, well, unless I'm wrong, I think the SACA is pretty much open to the public.
Yeah.
Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
Not the Adelaide Oval. We'll get a letter from Andrew Faulkner if you say anything like that. Adelaide Oval, I think, is generally open to the public or there and about. So I kind of like that too. If you're an Indian fan, you would, and there was a chance to show up to training, I reckon I'd do that.
Yeah.
I reckon I'd absolutely do that.
Yeah.
It's just a chance to see Vera up close, to see a little bit of this magic, especially with the team flying the way it is. And there are so many Indians in Adelaide now that they're really expecting the stadium to sell out for a couple of days. And interestingly enough, that stand over there, the Gavin Wanganeen, Jack Oating, that's for the Mark Rasciuto stand, doesn't often sell out because most people know that's subject
That's
to
the one that gets the sun,
Apparently massive sort of ticket sales in that stand. And the members have bled into is it called the Riverside stand there?
Yeah.
Because I didn't notice. I ran into Nick Hockley this morning when I was out for a walk, and Nick said that they've come to an arrangement with all the grounds where the membership, the members' seating is flexible. If they can ease into the public seat where and when it works, and that's kind of going on here now. There's all the cricket royalty are in town, Gideon. There's some bloody car downstairs, must be the governor's car or something. There's the crown on the number plates and all that.
Not the cricket automobile.
The recently unveiled the CEO of Cricket Australia, who's replacing Nick Hockley. Todd Greenberg was in the lift. I believe Mike Baird's somewhere in the vicinity. So, make sure you're on your best behaviour when you're around, mate. There's some important people in town in this city of the free settlers.
Now, Todd made his first public appearance as CA CEO this morning. I'm sure you were there, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, Pete.
Oh, you don't know me. Guess what? I missed the memo.
You were still busy enjoying the ensuite at Aquinas.
Exactly that, Gideon. No, I had a few things on this morning, including staking out Marnus at Peter Rabbit Cafe and then going back and writing that article about Afghanistan at my little desk where some med students probably been working through their third-year cadaver course or something until before my arrival.
What do we think of Todd's appointment, Pete?
It's predictable, Gideon. I mean, we would have been surprised if he wasn't appointed.
Yes.
I guess to some degree there's always some disappointment that there wasn't a surprise, that they didn't guide us. It makes sense. I think he'll do the job very well. there is some concern in cricket land that he knows the secrets. He knows the players' secrets. He knows the Players Association secrets. And going into the next MOU, he'll have the upper hand, whether he wants to exploit that or not. There isn't anything about the way the the Australian Cricket Association works that he doesn't know.
Yeah, sure. But I would imagine I'm not sure that the ACA is all that opaque. I mean, I think its finances are pretty straightforward. I don't think there are too many horrors hiding behind the arras at the ACA. If you remember that the reverse situation applied in the original MOU when Graham Halbish got sacked as the chief executive of CA and immediately signed up as a consultant to the ACA in the original MOU.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And in fact, the CA would not deal with Halbish, and Halbish had to stand aside from those negotiations.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Well, look, I think that détente that came between Cricket Australia and the Australian Cricketers Association when Nick Hockley and Todd Greenberg just decided that the best path forward was to work together.
Yes.
That's been good for cricket because we saw what happened when it didn't work like that. Nobody wants to see that. Oh, well, maybe the journo in me wants to see another ugly MOU dispute like that one run by that bloke from Rio Tinto and his thug mates.
Well, the best negotiation is CEO to CEO. And I think that was the problem that one of the problems that CA and the ACA had in 2017 was that Sutherland was kept out of the negotiation with Alistair Nicholson, and Nicholson ended up dealing with Kevin Roberts, and it wasn't quite clear how much discretion Roberts actually had.
There was a sense that he used to have to run back and see approval and everything, wasn't there?
Yeah.
He didn't have that autonomy to negotiate energetically.
And it was a deliberate provocation by CA. They wanted to belittle the ACA. They wanted to say, you're only good enough for you to deal with our second most important man. Anyway, hopefully they've learned their lesson. And because there are some serious MOU discussions to happen. We're in the middle of an MOU cycle now. The ACA CEOs tend to stay for one MOU cycle, don't they? And it wasn't a surprise to see Todd move on after one. But, as he was saying this morning, I think the environment is changing so fast that probably by the time the next MOU is to be negotiated, both CA and the ACA will look quite different.
Well, we were going to talk about this later. We did planning. How did that go?
Didn't survive contact with the enemy. Go on.
That Greg Barclay interview in the Times this morning with Nick Holt, Greg Barclay being the outgoing ICC boss since being replaced by Jay Shah. He signalled some very tough times ahead, and one of them was financial. He just says that those big money broadcasts are a thing of the past.
Well, I think we've known that in Australia for a while, haven't we? That was what happened last time.
Yeah, well, they held the line, didn't they, to some degree? But they had to sell off a few more little bits and pieces.
If you're simply holding the line, then you're going backwards. And CA did go backwards last time. I don't think it was. There is a lack of competitive tension in the Australian market, which they had previously been able to override, but this time caught up with them. So I think in some respects, I think Todd actually said the same thing this morning in his remarks that there were major headwinds for CA running into, and I think you weren't there, Pete, but I'm reading back Todd's comments this morning. He said cricket has the biggest challenges coming to it of all the domestic sports, but don't worry, it also has the greatest opportunity and ambition, and to marry those two things together will be the definition of success. Which is a good way of saying nothing.
What do you want me to say to that?
One thing he also said, you won't hear a lot of me, and you'll hear a lot of us, because, Pete, it takes a village, and it's going to take an entire cricket village if we're going to turn the ship.
I can't wait to hear what our friends at the Grade Cricketer have to say about him using the word village and cricket
And ship.
in such close proximity.
How many times have you seen a ship turned by a village?
In village cricket. Oh, my goodness.
The ships I've been on are turned by wheels. But anyway, yes, you're right. You quoted liberally from that Greg Barclay piece in your piece today. What did you make of Barclay's remarks?
I thought there's some validity to them. If you are going to not play Afghanistan bilaterally, you do look a bit like a hypocrite if you play them in those ICC series. What's that, half a principle or something?
Yeah.
But, mate, the point of my piece was to actually seek people's opinions on this one, because it gives me a headache. I don't know what the right thing to do around Afghanistan cricket is. And when, I suppose, and I've backed Australia not playing them bilaterally simply because I think you have to do something for the women, for women in Afghanistan. You have to make some statement. But then I hear, and even the women who are in Australia talk about the joy that the Afghan refugees in Australia, the joy that they get from seeing the men's team play so well and having achieved so much in such a short period. Who's going to deny those people that fun, that little bit of fun in life, in what must be a pretty miserable life in Afghanistan these days. So I'm torn. You've always believed that they should just play along because nothing's going, haven't you?
Well, not with any huge enthusiasm. It's not like I'm cheering Afghanistan on as a result. But I do have this feeling that if you do that, what next? It doesn't really achieve anything for Afghanistan, and it probably leaves us worse off on a net basis. And I have the feeling that we're doing it not for Afghanistan, but for our own sort of queasy consciences. I understand that you people draw the parallel between Afghanistan and South Africa and the world of the sporting boycott in the 1970s and 80s.
Yeah.
Well, remember how long that took, for one thing. It's kind of from the Sharpeville massacre to the restoration of South Africa on a multiracial basis to cricket is 3.5 decades. And that was where in South Africa remedy was possible via the ballot box. In Afghanistan, no such outcome is possible. In South Africa, there were sanctions to impose and there was trade to curtail. Afghanistan doesn't have any trade with the outside world. You have none of the other levers. So the sports boycott had to work in conjunction with other political and forces of economic suasion, which aren't available to us. So it's expecting cricket to do a hell of a lot of work, and ultimately, I'm not sure it's going to change anything in our lifetimes, potentially.
I guess what gives me the shits about it, Gideon, is that the ICC turned a blind eye to its own negotiations. I wonder in this case where the ICC have always insisted that, you have to have women's cricket to be a member of the organisation. If you don't have women's cricket, I want to make sure that money isn't just go to the men's cricket. Also, do something for the fucking women, and pardon my language, at least Cricket Australia have organised some cricket for these women.
Yes.
It's a small gesture, I know. But mate, change does take a long time. But I take all of your points on apartheid. But you don't reach peace in. But we'll move on.
It's not easy.
Back to matters that I'm far more comfortable with. Pat Cummins was asked about the brouhaha over the divisions in the dressing room following Josh Hazelwood's rather gruff take that one of the the batters, that's the batters' problem. It's not mine. Ask them. Which did make me laugh. And what was Pat's answer? It's 100. The observations from the commentators are 100% wrong. I think he's left a little wriggle room there, Gideon. I would have liked
because normally to be 110%.
Exactly. You know where I'm coming from, and you probably have the same doubts there. So Pat's left wriggle room on that one.
If it was Matthew Hayden, it would have been 1,000,000%.
Oh,
We're not trying hard enough. I did think that we rather obviously missed the lead in that story because Hazelwood said in that press conference that he was having treatment for an injury. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, he's out of the side and everyone's expressing surprise about it.
He's on the physio table.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. That's great wisdom with hindsight.
Board news, man. Board news, man, Pete.
Well, I tell you something positive.
Yeah.
Because, I roll my eyes when they say it's a small injury. That always means they're out for 12 months in my book. He's done a bit of bowling. He's done a bit of running. He looks all right. And Cummins did say, look, he picked it up on the third day. And that's, I decided to go, the game was gone by that point.
Yeah.
Didn't bowl him again. And he said, in normal circumstances, Josh would have bowled a lot more, and you would not have seen those sort of circus act bowlers that you probably saw in that, which infuriated you so much. I remember.
Well, it was pretty obvious what they were doing. They were playing for time, and they were thinking of the next test, and they think probably the next two. And the issue with Hazelwood is that if you picked him now, he would potentially have to back up in a few days' time. So you're almost picking him for a 10-day test match in 14 days. So you're never going to take that risk, I don't think.
No. Should we have a break? And I mean, I don't know if we have sponsors or not. Actually, our one female listener, Gideon, why aren't we attractive to women? I mean, clearly you are, but said that all the ads are directed toward men in our podcast.
Well, I don't know. I've never listened to the podcast, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, we have nothing to do with that advertising. We've got no idea what it is.
Absolutely.
Except for the hard and fast rule that there's no betting ads in there. Yeah. No betting ads. Is there any other ads that we banned?
I'll have to listen to it in order to find out.
I think we might have. I'm sure we did a bit of virtue signalling when we signed up.
Back in a moment on Cricket et al. And we're back on Cricket et al. Pete's still in Adelaide. I'm still in Melbourne. I'll be in Adelaide tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to catching up at Aquinas College, our traditional digs. I'll be arriving very early in the morning. I'm probably half asleep. What else is happening in cricket, Pete?
What else is happening in cricket, Pete? Good question. I was interviewed by the Fin Review yesterday about...
Tell me more.
The Fin Review are very excited, I think, about the rise and rise of the Adelaide Test.
Yeah.
So wanted my thoughts on that. And it is the best test.
Yes.
There's absolutely no doubt about it, is there? It's by the length of the straight. And not even putting it on at inconvenient hours for us ruins the experience of an Adelaide Test. It takes the edge off it a little bit. But if people are listening and love Test cricket, make sure once in your life you come to Adelaide. I know my father had a very bad experience in Adelaide as a young bloke and would never come back. But it's improved a lot, and I've always had I had a difficult relationship with Adelaide in the early years. I had that unfortunate incident where I called it the city of vomit, and was almost banned from blocked at the border the next time I came back.
So Adelaide is to you what Perth is to me.
Do you recall that?
I do.
Because I used to go out running in the morning on Hindley Street, and on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, if you're out running on Hindley Street, you're running just as some pretty serious nights winds down. And there used to be pools of vomit that I'd sidestepped. And then one morning, someone went over a balcony above me and hurled a bloody waterfall of vomit that I just managed to sidestep because I was pretty light on my feet in those days. And then I remember I was just thinking, I can help this town. And then that night we got in a cab coming back from an Indian restaurant a couple of suburbs away. And guess what? The previous passenger had vomited in the cab. Oh, it did my head in.
It only needs to happen twice, doesn't it, for it to become a tradition?
Yeah. But I don't go out Kindly Street at that hour of the morning anymore, and the cabs are cleaner. And I've just learned to love the Adelaide Test.
How do we feel about the pink ball and the night? I'm still not enamored of it.
Well,
I liked it going back to a day. I'm very used to my day in Adelaide and my evening discussing and digesting the day's play. I don't think night cricket is ever Test cricket at night is not something I'm still comfortable with, and I'm pleased it hasn't taken the world by storm, frankly, as we thought it might back in 2015.
I'm a little bit more selfless. Excuse me, Gideon. Yeah. I'm a little bit more selfless than you, despite accusations.
We all knew that.
Despite accusations that may have been made recently at home. I can see the benefits of a people to other people, Gideon. I can see that if you're at home, if you get home from work and cricket's on the tally, that's pretty good. It does look spectacular, particularly when the sun goes down, and it has added another level of intrigue to a test match. Just around, what that pink ball does at that certain point of the day. That said, Gideon, getting back to the event at hand, the pink ball does go flat very quickly, and I'm hearing that, and that wicket out there looks like it's had the grass trimmed right back.
Okay, right.
And they're determined to have a 4-day test, I think. And it can get really boring when that pink ball is flat. Batting, while it's hard to score, it's also hard to get out unless you're some of the Australian top order at the moment. So I don't know. Yeah. I'd rather they didn't have day-night tests. I've always said that. But if it's good for the people that like cricket, that's okay.
The conditions are interesting in a pink ball test, and they obviously fluctuate a great deal more depending on the condition of the ball and the time of the day and night. And I do kind of appreciate the sort of the ebb and flow of that. I wouldn't want to see it become a convention in Australia. I'm prepared to accept one. I'm sorry that it's Adelaide. I thought Adelaide was the most convivial and social test of an evening. And of course the night test means that we do get to the Exie very late indeed, Pete.
Hey, you'll never guess what the first thing I did on getting to Adelaide was.
I already know.
Plunge your pillow and put the pedals out. I ran into Big Nick Ryan, the wine, the famous wine player,
the man,
who works for the Oz magazine and various other publications. Sartorially splendid,
always is
splendid and elegant. Yeah, fantastic man. I bumped into him and he just looked at each other and said, Exie? He said, too right. And the Coopers never taste better than the Coopers at the Exeter, I've got to say.
Well, okay. Well, look, I'll be there tomorrow, Pete. I can't wait to get there. Always enjoy arriving in Adelaide. And
will you be there in time for breakfast at Peter Rabbit? Should I wait?
I will. That's why I made my booking. Yep. So I'll be stripping straight off the plane into a cab and on my way to Peter Rabbit.
Have we got a date there?
I think we do.
All right, because we got a date there on the second morning. I think I told you about that as well.
Oh, really? Okay. The dance card is extending. Oh, excellent. Okay, good. Look forward to that.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it's been lovely to chat, Gideon. I can't wait till you get here.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention, we discussed the other night the Global Super League in Guyana. And if you recall, we were discussing the weirdness of a team called Victoria being there. Strange thing is that Victoria is top of the table in the Global Super League at the moment.
Remind me who's playing for them, Gideon.
It is they're being captained by Corey Anderson, the American Canadian, the American New Zealander. Victoria is being captained by, Corey Anderson. John O'Wells is playing for them. Joe Clark, Kareem McGaw from the US, a bunch of players from the US. So they're going all right. And apparently, what happened was that Cricket Victoria wanted to send one of the Big Bash teams. They wanted to send either the Renegades or the Stars, but CA wouldn't give them NOCs. So Victoria was obliged to go off and pick whoever they could either from the state roster or the San Francisco Unicorns, which is, of course, the US, the Major League Cricket team that they have an association with, to honour the commitment. And see
Captained
also
by Pat Cummins.
Indeed.
Yes.
And the CA also denied NOCs to Ashton Agar and to Chris Green, who wanted to play for other teams as overseas players.
I saw that. Yeah. There's some interesting little conflicts emerging here and there, aren't there, over these tussles over these sort of franchises and who plays where and what and when.
Well, of course, as Jonathan Liu was pointing out in a column for The Guardian, it's all about the oil. It's all about Guyana's sudden rush to be rich. It's got the ExxonMobil imprimatur on it. It's obviously a sort of a down payment on Guyana's future role in world cricket. In some ways, it's not a bad thing to see big time cricket come back to Guyana in a big way, not in the form of a test match, but in the form of a T20 tournament. There is something slightly eerie about the fact that it is a kind of a subset or as I said the other day, the franchise of a franchise, a sort of a subsidiary or an associate of the Caribbean Premier League. But look, literally, cricket these days is popping up wherever there is money and wherever there is TV and wherever there is a potential audience. Although I think looking at the crowds in the games so far, it's been a TV tournament rather than a live tournament.
Well, yeah, ain't that the way, Gideon? Did the Adam Zampa controversy, did that make its way down to Victoria? Were you aware of that?
Well, I was reading about it on Cricket et al., the story broken by our very own Sam Perry.
That's right. It was. Well, yes, he had the exclusive take from Adam Zampa, who has upset everybody by being included in the New South Wales 11 for the Sheffield Shield round just past. He is sort of, I guess, to some degree, a New South Wales player, but he doesn't live in Sydney. No. He lives up at Byron Bay, gets everyone's nose out of joint, that situation. And people were really annoyed that he was put into the team and confused as to whether there was a directive from Cricket Australia to put him in the team or not. It turns out there wasn't.
Yeah.
As Zampa told Sam Perry in that story. But cricket's getting itself into some odd conundrums these days, isn't it?
Look, it was a small storm in a very large teacup. But I do think I'm very traditionally minded where these things are concerned. But I do think in this day and age, the idea that kind of premier clubs act as gatekeepers to first class cricket, that you have to have an association with a premier club, is a bit of an anachronism. It's asking a little bit too much. I mean, the state is New South Wales. It's not Sydney. The expectation that you have to live in Sydney and that you have to move yourself to Sydney in order to represent a club, I think is, well, for someone like Zampa, who's 32 and has played 200 games for Australia, and has probably feels a bit keenly that he's never had the red ball opportunities that he wants. I think to kind of try and apply that as a hard and fast rule, to say that he has to be like Johnny Gleeson, who, if you remember back in the 1960s, used to have to fly from Tamworth every weekend in order to play for his club in Sydney grade cricket to be selected by New South Wales, thus leading to his nickname, Pete, Show, Cricket Hours Only, because he arrived just in time to play and then he had to leave and get on the plane to go home. I can't see Zampa doing that. Maybe if Zampa had his own plane, I wouldn't put that past him.
Hey, have you got a bead on the Indian 11 for this match?
Not in order, but I mean, this is what I'm thinking.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second.
Go on.
Hey, we're trying to pull out.
You tell him.
Look, it's really noisy out there, mate.
You tell him. What am I thinking? I'm thinking probably Shubman to come in for Dhruv. I'm thinking Rohit to come in for Padikal.
Shubman for Dhruv, yeah.
Yeah. I reckon maybe Shubman to bat 3. You won't disturb the openers after a stand like that. You'll get Rohit to come in at 5.
Yeah.
Hand at 6.
Yeah.
You might pick Ashwin ahead of Washington Sundar. Otherwise, probably no change. And you might make a change to the paceman for the next Test match, depending on how they go. But yeah, I mean they're kind of forced changes. You can't really have Shubman fit and not playing, and of course Rohit's got to play. But apart from that, that's probably about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But what you say is, I agree with that. Yeah. Other than that, I'd just be speculating, Gideon, and I just...
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Yeah, mindless speculation.
Okay, yes. I've got no speculation left.
Okay. That's all we've got time for. And we have no speculation left on Cricket et al. Thanks for joining us. In the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And they shut up out the back, see, they listen to me. And it's good night from him.